Hey, what's up folks? How's it going? This is Waj. Hope you guys are all doing well. And in this video, we're going to be doing a comparison between two flying camera platforms, specifically the Bebop 2 with the Sky controller and the Phantom 3 4K. Now, both platforms actually retail for under $800. Now, you obviously can get the Bebop 2 as a standalone drone if you want to control it with your iPhone or smartphone or whatever for under $500. And in that scenario, you can also compare this against the Phantom 3 standard. Now, this comparison is going to be applicable for both scenarios. So no matter if you want to get the Phantom 3 4K or the standard, you're going to have a good idea in terms of how those platforms are going to kind of compare against the new Bebop 2. So we're going to get into the good and the bads of both these two drones, and let's see which one comes out on top. Now, one thing that the Bebop 2 has over the DJI drone is the compact overall form factor. As you can see, in terms of the actual footprint, there's not a massive difference between the two, but there is in terms of height. The Phantom 3 4K is about 180 millimeters in terms of height versus the Bebop 2 is only 36 millimeters. So you can definitely stuff one into a backpack kind of comfortably, and you're going to have to get some kind of dedicated carrying bag for the other one. Now, that being said, if you get the Sky controller, throw out the portability aspect of the Bebop 2, because with that massive controller, the whole portability aspect again gets completely changed. And obviously you can control the Bebop 2 with your smartphone, which is kind of cool, but optimally, if you want the best experience with the Bebop 2, you definitely want to use the Sky controller to fly it. Now, the one huge upgrade on the Bebop 2 compared to the original Bebop is the battery performance. It's more than doubled its capabilities now, and basically with the Bebop 2 and with the Phantom 3 4K, you get about 20 minutes on average of flight time, and it'll fluctuate depending upon how you use the drones themselves, but 20 minutes is perfectly fine, and charging doesn't take too long. Both can be charged within around 40 to 35 minutes, so definitely excellent in terms of overall power efficiency, and the overall battery life is very acceptable on both platforms. Furthermore, when it comes to the maximum unobstructed communication difference, the Phantom 3 4K is a Wi-Fi enabled drone, and with the antenna that it currently has, it can go up to about 1.2 kilometers. Now, the Bebop 2's communication distance with just a smartphone or tablet is about 300 meters, and with the Sky controller, it's possibly up to 2 kilometers. Now, in most cases, you're not going to get those kind of communication distance even in ideal conditions, because it's fairly inconsistent signal quality. The feed itself is not as good as the feed that you get on the Phantom 3 4K, which is much better in terms of overall latency. The signal quality is much more consistent, and the video quality is definitely nicer to view compared to anything you have on the Bebop 2 side. Now, the controllers on both platforms are very easy to use. They both utilize dual thumbsticks, and they have dedicated controls for record, camera angles, and return to home, and all the essential things that you need. The Bebop 2 Sky controller is pretty much identical to the Sky controller you got on the first generation, and in most cases, I think the design definitely needs to be a little bit more compact, because it definitely takes away from any of the portability aspect that the Bebop 2 is trying to maintain. And the radio on the Phantom 3 4K is pretty much identical to all of the controllers that you see on the Phantom 3 lineup of drones. And again, nothing is wrong with it. Very easy to use, very compact overall design, dual thumbsticks, have dedicated controls for record, taking a picture, as well as vital camera properties such as the gimbal angle and exposure. The only real thing that you have with the Sky controller is the HDMI port, which could be used for external monitoring. You could even pop in a pair of goggles for some FPV action. You have an HDMI port on the Inspire 1 drone from DJI, but none of the Phantom 3 have a port available at the current moment. Now, in terms of the flight dynamics and performance, both drones can travel up to 15 meters per second, which is pretty darn fast. They both can ascend and descend pretty quick as well. Now, both systems have ultrasound and optical flow sensors, which gives both platforms the ability to fly in indoor spaces where a GPS signal cannot penetrate through. But in real life, the hover deviation and the overall stability is much better on the Phantom 3 4K drone compared to what I experienced with the Bebop 2. The Bebop 2 is fairly easy to overall fly, but if there's a gust of wind, because it's so lightweight and such a compact form factor, it definitely can get upset with a strong external force, versus the Phantom 3 is definitely a lot more confident inspiring and certainly more stable in most regards. Now, there's a pretty big difference in the way that each drone captures their video respectively. On the Phantom 3 side, things are a lot more traditional. You have a 3-axis gimbal coupled with a bespoke camera that DJI has designed themselves. The Bebop 2, on the other hand, does things a little bit differently. It doesn't have a physical gimbal. Everything is done actually through software. It has a 14 megapixel sensor that's coupled with a fairly wide angle fisheye lens that has like 180 degrees field of view, and basically within the software you pan and scan to see which area of the sensor that you want to view the world through. Now, that's definitely a cool idea, and in turn you definitely get a more compact solution compared to a traditional gimbal and camera configuration that you have on most drones. But the reality is that the software isn't perfect, and in many ways, if you're looking at extreme vantage points at the edge and corner of the sensor, you're going to find a lot of artifacting and even blank spaces. So when you're looking straight down from a bird's eye perspective, you're going to see a lot of that software working and kind of struggling to maintain a clear and proper picture. Versus on the Phantom 3, you're pretty much never going to come across those certain issues because the camera is always independent in terms of its movement compared to what the drone is doing, and there's no real software reliance whatsoever, which is always a great thing if you want to get consistent shots every time. When it comes to overall specifications, as we mentioned before, we have a 14 megapixel sensor on the Bebop 2 and a 12 megapixel sensor on the Phantom 3 4K. In terms of video capabilities, we have a whole bunch of different configurations on the 4K. Obviously, 3840 by 2160 at 30 FPS. You can also shoot at a slightly higher Cinema 4K standard at 24 and 25 FPS. You can also shoot at 2.7K and 1080p at 60 frames per second, as well as a couple of different other resolutions. And in most cases, the 1080p 30 FPS performance you get on the Bebop 2 is nowhere comparable to the amount of clarity and the color depth and the overall bitrate that you're going to get with the Phantom 3 4K. There's really no competition over here. If you're looking for a drone specifically for aerial photography, there's again no contest and no comparison. In fact, the camera on the Phantom 3 4K is pretty much identical to the one that you're going to get on the Phantom 3 Professional, which got released last year. And in addition to that, another huge disadvantage on the Bebop side is that there is no SD card slot. Basically, it's using 8 gigabytes of internal memory, and once you run out, either you can offload that media onto your smartphone wirelessly or do something else with it. And of course, on the Phantom 3 4K, you have a micro SD slot right there, so you can easily put in something like 64 gigabytes and shoot all day. Now, lastly, when it comes to the price point, both the Bebop 2 with the Sky controller and the Phantom 3 4K retail for under the $800 mark, and you can get the Bebop 2 as a standalone drone for under $550. And basically, if you want to get the best drone possible for the money, the real compelling argument becomes when you start considering the Phantom 3 Standard, which we did a full review on. Check out that video if you haven't already. But that retails for under $500, comes with the controller and a camera that can shoot up to 2.7K, which is more than adequate for most folks out there. And the overall flight dynamics and performance is very similar to all the other Phantom 3 lineup of drones. So that's definitely dollar for dollar, probably the best aerial photography platform you're going to get currently available right now. Now, as you saw from the comparison, although the improvements that Parrot made to the Bebop 2 are nice, specifically the battery life and things like that, and the flight dynamics are a little bit more stable, it's still not that great of a platform. And compared to what DJI is offering with the Standard and the 4K at those competitive price points, it's a really hard comparison, and we definitely have a clear winner on the DJI side. If you are looking for a first-time drone and you don't want to spend a lot of money, the Standard is an absolutely excellent choice. If you want a little bit better video quality and a little bit better flight dynamics, the Phantom 3 4K is excellent as well. And we're going to have obviously full reviews of all three of these platforms in the description down below. So if you want more in-depth detail about each product, definitely check out those links in the description down below. But really, other than that, this is really it. Thanks again for watching. See you later. Take care.